Hello and welcome back to They Don't Teach This in Law School. I'm your host, Charlie Mann of law firm Alchemy. And my guest today, for many, may need no introduction. He is the law firm digital marketing pugilist and someone who I've enjoyed watching from a little bit afar, but got to know him better recently over the last couple of years. I know a lot of law firm owners who work with his company on their digital marketing assets. And I'm hoping that we can poke, prod, and find some fun ways to talk about growth in a rather crowded, increasingly crowded digital marketing space for law firm owners. But also, I kind of want to ask him a little bit about EOS and his business because he's been having some huge results there. And it's really cool to learn from outside businesses in order to get ideas for growing your own law firm. So I'm super excited to have on the show the founder of Mockingbird Marketing, Conrad Saam. Conrad, how you doing?
Hey, thanks for having me. I have never been called a pugilist to my face, although I suspect behind closed doors that has happened more than I would like to admit.
I consider it complimentary. I like someone who's willing to put up their dues.
Right? Yeah.
Plus, it's a fun word to say. I don't know. It rolls off the tongue pleasurably.
It's an SAT word. I'm in SAT land with my kids at the age that they're in right now. So yeah, no, it's a good SAT word.
Awesome. All right. So you got to answer the question to get this thing started, which is, what's the one thing they don't teach you in law school?
Well, the classic obvious, and like I have an MBA, so like the predilection for me is to say business. I think that that concept has been overemphasized ad nauseum. The drill down for me and for what I do, therefore, is marketing, right? They don't teach you marketing. I think that's overstated. I really do think that's overstated. Think about the profession that we're in. You are in. I'm not in this profession. I'm on the sidelines, but you're in the profession of convincing people, right? And you're in the profession of communication, right? There is an element of it to that. And I think that too many times we just assume that all lawyers are stupid and incapable when it comes to either business or specifically marketing. I don't think that's the case. And I think there are plenty of examples for us to look at right now of lawyers who have an innate understanding of marketing and persuasion, because that is taught in law schools. And there are plenty of examples right now of people who are doing this really, really well and learning to resonate with people and stuff like that. I think that is, it is a truism. It's not even something we need to convince people of. If there's any failing in law school, it is the perspective, and this is an old school perspective, but it is still very much in the industry, is that marketing is beneath you, right? That this is a profession. We shouldn't do this. You're wallowing in the mud. That marketing is something that you should not have to do because you just go out and do good work. That perspective was rampant a decade ago. It was rampant in 2006 when I started working in digital marketing, in legal digital marketing. It's gone a little bit by the wayside at this point in time, but I don't know that the law schools have really caught up on that. I mean, there aren't that many people who are coming out without those skills, right? And with that perspective that we're above this, right? It still exists in the industry, and I do believe that probably comes from the law schools.
Undoubtedly, I think it comes in a lot of professions where there is the classic is just do good work and the cases will come. I would imagine that there was perhaps even a time in building a digital marketing company for yourself where there was, I think we all fall victim to this at some point or another, of leaning on we're doing good work. Why aren't there more people at our doorstep? Did you ever go through that phase?
Well, I don't think so, because I always liked I always liked the talking part, right? Which is all I have to do to promote the company. That's all I've ever done. And I've always liked that. So that's just kind of worked well for me. But the number of lawyers who are like, that lawyer who outranks me on Google, they're a terrible lawyer. And you're like, like there's this notion that Google can assess like how good you are as an attorney, and that's a ranking factor. But like there was this sense of umbrage that you're outranked by that firm. They're not real lawyers, right? They're not trial lawyers. Like, and you're like, Like, you don't get it. Like, it's not Google's job to tell people the best lawyer, right? That's not the game. And so you completely misunderstand this.
Oh, it's a gargantuan gap right there. So when someone comes to you and says, hey, it's not fair, how do you address that issue and get them ready to embrace the marketing side?
Yeah, well, I think that it's not fair thing. Boy, now we're gonna get into my parenting style. Like, my favorite thing. I mean, my
Here we
kids don't
go.
ever say it's not fair, right? Because you're like, that's right, I don't care, right? Also, it's not fair that I don't get to have recess at 11 o'clock, from 11 o'clock to 12 o'clock, right? So, like, okay, the world is not fair. Um, I think the step that you have to make is, you may be the best lawyer out there. That is not reflected on the web. And it is your prerogative to ensure that that is the case, right? And ensure that it doesn't happen. The digital profile reflecting your awesomeness as a lawyer, or who you are, what you do, that doesn't just happen. It is a systemic and deliberate thing that needs to happen. And if you are I mean, we can talk about reviews. I've dealt with the review thing for a long time. Go back, ask me about reviews 4 years ago. Laura's like, I'm not asking for reviews. That's gross. And then go back when we started. Ava was the first directory that had reviews on lawyers, and the lawyers and the bars went bananas. This is 2007, right? And like, it was like, who do you think you are? You can't review me. And you're like,
Yep.
you don't understand the world as it is changing. So like, the evolution of that has gone from like a deep sense of umbrage, like this cannot be done, I'm a professional, right? To now, I mean, we're at an extreme level of just mass fake reviews and spam, and FTC is talking about things. And like, I mean, talk about, again, I've been doing this since 2006. So we're almost 20 years in, but
Yeah.
we have gone from a sense that this is not a thing that should ever happen, and I'm going to sue you, Section 230 be damned, to like, I am buying reviews from Thailand and I'm totally cool with it. And boy, oh boy, I hope, Google and the US government doesn't catch up to me.
Okay. This is inviting a whole other level of conversation, which is, you are fighting a fight where there are people playing it with, we'll call, less than stellar ethics, right? To be polite about it. And you can be less polite if you want. But you're in the business of helping law firms expand, grow, etc., when they are dealing with people who are buying the reviews. How do you stay the honorable path in the midst of all of that when there are cheat codes available?
I think that this is an unpopular answer. It's not an easy answer to give, because we don't do we have these 10 commandments that we live by. They've existed since early. We started the agency in 2013. I think the 10 commandments came out in 2014. What number? I think it's 8 or 9 is white hat to a fault, right? So we play the long game. Having said that, I can't deny that buying reviews right now is a great marketing tactic. I can't tell you that doesn't work. I can't tell you that AI generated spam on social media doesn't work. I can't tell you that. And so to some extent, we have clients who have their hands tied behind their back. There are some tactical things that you can do to counteract that. Okay. So let me give this is unfortunately a dated example. I used to spend probably 10 to 15% of the money that was spent with my agency on burning down fake offices. So it used to be, and the policy still is, you're supposed to have an office that's manned with people in it during normal business hours, and those people work for you, right? And that was abused and abused and abused, especially in California, but like everywhere that was kind of abused. And there was a feedback system, and you could report these offices. And we used to send people out with video cameras to go show that this was, wasn't really an office, if there's no one there, whatever it might be. Like, we used to do that. And they would burn those offices, right? And so like, it's a zero-sum game. If that office is ranking, yours isn't. And so, and I'm okay with burning those offices, because I believe genuinely, deeply, that people have a predilection to hire someone who's local, right? And if
Mhm.
you are pretending to be local, you're not only screwing the law firm who's not getting that client, you're also screwing the client who's expecting you to be local. I have no problem with it. Enter COVID. Well, now, like, I have an office in downtown Seattle. I go there every 3 weeks to get the mail, and that's it. There's no one there. It doesn't mean that we don't have an office. We're just distributed and no one ever goes there. And that's happened to law firms across the board. And so now there's this very gray area. You know, I said white hat to a fault, but like, okay, there's a gray area. Is that an office? Is it not an office? I don't know. I really don't know. And now this office expansion model, we call it the centipede model, super effective, right? Absolutely massively effective. And yet it's a gray area. So like that burn down office thing has evolved from something that was fully against the rules that we would take action against to now with the centipede strategy, like it's it's an asset that I really think lawyers should be leveraging and leaning into. And you can see how that evolves. But to go back to your question, how do we live in a place where the ethics are so difficult? Like some things, and very bluntly, Google's enforcement of this has gotten, I mean, they're not doing anything about fake reviews. They used to do a lot about fake offices, and there was a system and a policy and a way to do this. Fake reviews, like, good luck, right? And so like,
Yeah.
that's just part of the game. So to answer that specific question about reviews, if you are a small business in a large city with a bunch of law firms that are, you know, tossing out fake reviews like mad, you're not going to rank in local. You're not. You're not. And
So what do we
now
do?
you find different channels, right? You have to find different channels. But your ability, and SEOs will they like saying this at conferences, oh, I can rank anywhere. Like, no, you can't. Right? Like that is not the marketing channel. And I think that's one of the mistakes that agencies often have is that, you know, I'm an SEO company, so you should be doing SEO, or I'm a pay-per-click company, so you should pay-per-click, or I've cracked the LSA code, which is bullshit. No one has cracked the LSA code. And so you should be doing LSAs or you should be doing like people tend to see the world for what they do. The reality is there is the right marketing mix for every different law firm, but it's not everything should be done by every law firm, right? Like you shouldn't try and execute on all marketing channels because not all marketing channels are appropriate for every law firm.
Well, I don't know. I go on Facebook and I see an ad that tells me in 90 days I can be ranked #1. I mean, Conrad, why aren't you making that guarantee?
It boggles my mind. I know who you're talking about. It boggles my mind. I know there's two guys who this is their pitch. And I don't understand how this industry that should have a modicum of cynicism built into what you do falls for this crap. I mean, it's not like you're buying steak knives. It's not like there are some quick wins, but they are few and far between. And they're only a quick win because your agency has dropped the ball, right? They're only a quick win because what you're currently doing has been executed poorly, not because like someone's cracked some amazing code or they found like the way to. It's hard, man. It's hard. It's hard now. Everyone's playing in this game. It's like you guys going back and be like, oh, I figured out the yellow pages, right? And you're like, well, here's the yellow pages. You buy the back cover, right? And you spend a whole bunch of money. That's figuring out the yellow page. That's what it took. That doesn't exist anymore. There aren't those little tiny things where, I mean, we're always looking for them, but like they disappear very quickly. LSAs, when they came out, my clients were killing it. And now people are like, oh, our LSA cost per lead has doubled. And you're like, that's great. And it's still cheaper than pay-per-click. So like keep doing it. But I can't bring you back to the $40 cost per call for a motor vehicle accident. It's just not happening. Like the ground is moving underneath you, and don't try and go backwards. You have to think about what the next thing is.
But Conrad, we have to maximize our ROI on what we're doing.
All right. So, dear listener, if you don't know me, that's fine. But Charlie does. ROI is the most aggravating thing. This annoys me every time I hear it. And Charlie's pushing my buttons on purpose. I will tell you that. I've said this over and over again. If you're listening to me and you're like, "Oh, maximize ROI, that sounds like a great idea," ask yourself, do you know how to calculate return on investment? And if you know the formula, you know that it's a stupid comment. And if you don't know the formula, stop listening to people tell you ROI. The people who say ROI don't know what it is. The return on investment. If you want to maximize your return on investment, here's the kicker. Cancel all of your paid marketing. Cancel all of your SEO efforts. Delete your website. Do nothing. Do from what we started at. Do great work and hope the referrals come to you. That is maximizing ROI because you're putting as little money into it and you're getting a whole bunch of money out of it. The problem is, if you do that, you can't grow your law firm. You probably can't keep your law firm alive. So it is not about maximizing your ROI. It is a stupid metric for marketing people to talk about. What you really want to be thinking about is ideally cost per case, like how much is it costing me to acquire this matter, or at the least, and I think this is the real way that people should be evaluating marketing vendors and channels, is what is my cost per consultation, right? You get a bigger numerator when you do that, right? You don't necessarily get a bigger numerator, which means you need less data in order to make statistically relevant analysis. And so I love the cost per consultation conversation. No one's doing that. It just drives me crazy, but like that's where you need to be. Don't think about ROI. It's such a stupid thing. And agencies that say ROI, like, just walk past because they don't know the number. They're giving you a number for whatever reason. It's like crack to you guys when you hear maximize ROI. You're like, oh, well, that seems like a good idea. Sorry. So Charlie gets me going.
So here's the real fun backdrop that I'll drop in here. And then I want to follow up on the idea of ROAS and, the return on advertising spend, and see where we can maybe get some numbers in. I'll let you on a little secret here, Conrad, is I texted Guy earlier and made sure I had what are the most recent hot button topics I could bring up for you. So
there you go.
Consider it collaborative.
There you go.
Okay. So data-wise, there's that gap right there on cost of acquisition, cost per consultation. We can keep moving down the line to numbers like return on advertising spend. Outside of cost per consultation, along that chain of tracking returns, where do you look at for the data set for returns in terms of time that people are putting in to convert a client, how much it costs to get that call, different channels? How can people start wrapping their arms around this really big but important gap?
Okay. So I will tell you a bunch of numbers that I think are important that no one thinks about. Cool. And then I will tell you the difficulties in tracking this stuff. Okay. But you should be doing this. You talked about, I think, speed through the funnel, something along those lines. Sales velocity is really important. Sales velocity, yes. and I break the funnel into very simplistic 4 steps. You have a lead, which is a phone call, form fill, text, or chat, 83% of which are garbage. So 83% of leads that we generate for our clients don't turn into a consultation. Okay. So that's a really good reason not to use leads to evaluate your marketing vendor. Okay. Now that number is different across different channels. So when you cut it by channel, it starts to look very, very fundamentally different. Right. So understand that. So you have a lead, you have a consultation, you have what we call AQL, which is attorney qualified lead, which means we've had the consultation and we want them. We went on the first date and we want to get married. Right. Mm-hmm. And then after that, you have client. And so those are the 4 simplistic steps in the funnel. And some of our clients put those together wisely. Right. So if you are, we have clients who will, their intake people can text a contract to the person who they're on the phone with, and they sign that while that is during that conversation, right? On the phone, they sign it. So they've now gone from lead to consult to attorney qualified lead in 1 step. That's amazing, because what happens is, and you know this if you've ever bought a used car, the used car salesperson, their job is to not let you off the lot without buying the car, because they know if you do that, the likelihood of you not buying the car increases. So if you talk to your spouse, you go talk to the bank, whatever it is, like the more you think about making a decision, the less likely you are to make the decision that they want you to make. So velocity is important. So I would want to know between those three steps, those three steps in the funnel, there's four levels, three steps between them. What is the velocity between those things? And how can I shorten that? Right? Really, really important. Then if you want to get really nerdy, you kind of cut it by different marketing channel. But the velocity is, so for example, here's an example where velocity can be really fundamentally different between different marketing channels. The phone call, that's a lead, right? So, okay, that's a lead, and now it's a phone call, and now I'm determining it's a qualified lead, and I'm going to book you for a consultation. I can do that. You fill out a form fill, and you wait for 3 days because you did it on Friday night, and then Joey, the guy who works the front desk, is going to look at that on Monday morning, maybe after the all hands meeting, and it gets back to you at noon. And by that time, like you've hired someone else, right?
Yeah.
So like these things can be different by channel. I think cutting them becomes really important. So velocity becomes important. The other thing that I think people, and I just kind of nailed this, alluded to this. I call this contact type. I don't know if there's a better word for that. This is it's Conrad making stuff up, like the centipede thing, but this is contact type. Phone call, form fill, text, and chat. They perform very differently. Very, very differently. And you should know how they perform differently because you can deliberately funnel people to one or the other, right? So like if you find, and you won't, but if you find that chat performs really, really well, by all means, let the chat vendors cover up your phone number on your website. So the only way people can contact you is you via chat. It doesn't work like that. So what we find across all of my data is, by and large, phone call, form fill, and text perform about half as well from a conversion perspective into a client as phone calls, right? And chat is half again less than that. So not all leads are created equal. So your leads, if you were to matrix these out, your leads are by your marketing channel, right? So things like directories tend to convert at really abysmally low rates, whereas something like pay-per-click, a non-branded pay-per-click term, is going to convert at a really high, or actually a branded pay-per-click term is going to convert at a really, really high rate. And so like you look at these different things and you have to look at them differently. But I would say it's a very long-winded answer to your very simple question. Velocity through the funnel, each of those steps in the funnel, and as well as your contact type conversion rates, because no one thinks about that, but it has a huge difference. It should change how you design your website, right? Like it should change what you prioritize visually. Do you want the form everywhere, or do you want the phone number everywhere? If you're a divorce attorney, people might not want to call you on the phone. You have to make the form ubiquitous. Or do you like throw it down at the bottom of the page where it's kind of fundamentally hidden? All of these things matter. And you can really only make those design choices when you have the data to determine what you want to prioritize. Otherwise, you're just guessing, man.
Okay, well, that brings up an issue of data sets and the size of them, and are we reaching statistical significance with the data that we have? So with some of these smaller firms that have limited data sets, what are some best practices on should they use data, and is there data that maybe they should be careful of using?
Yeah, no. The answer is yes, they should use data. The second answer to your question, should they be careful of the data they're using? Yes, they should not use their own data. Because you're never you're running $1,000 pay-per-click campaign in car accidents. It's going to take you 3 years to determine whether or not that spend is at a 98% confidence that ad A is better than ad B. It's going to take you 3 years. So like, what are you doing? I deeply, and this is a very self-serving comment, but I really deeply believe that there is value in piggybacking on the data of an agency that focuses in legal, right? So like, I'll use pay-per-click as an example because it's so obvious. When you work with me, let's say you're a really small firm and you have a really small budget, like, unless you plan to really grow that, don't call me. But B, if you do have a really small budget, you need to hire an agency that knows legal, that is going to take this, again, massively self-serving. There's lots of agencies that fall into this category, so it's not just me, but we spend millions of dollars on pay-per-click, millions of dollars. And that means that I know I've already got the right setup for a great pay-per-click campaign for car accidents. And so when you start with me, you're using the data of millions, probably at this point in time, $10 million or more of advertising spend for car accidents. Now, that needs to be customized to your individual strategy, your economics, your competitive set, what you want to do, what your geographic coverage is, there's endless ways that becomes, but I'm starting at the 20-mile mark at the marathon, and I'm fine tuning the last 6 miles. So I think you need to recognize that your own data is by and large useless, and so you want to work with an agency that has that experience. So you're just piggybacking on it. And the next thing that I would really like to do is the benchmarking side of things. I am a big believer in this, and I think agencies should do this. I know which of my clients. This is a simplistic example, but it's so powerful. I know which of my clients suck at answering the phone. Right. And so one of the numbers that I look at all the time is your phone call answer rate. So for me, my clients on average, the median is 93 or 94%. Right. So 93 or 94% of the time you call one of my clients, they're going to answer the phone.
Okay.
But I also know my 10 clients who are below 80. Right. And so if you're below 80, now you've got a piece of data like you suck at this. Like you might be good at all sorts of things, but like so your benchmarks, like these data, data without context is just numbers. Right? So without the all right, okay, you answer the phone 80% of the time. Maybe that's great. Right? But like without the context, you don't know. You need to know where you're garbage, because without knowing where you're garbage, you don't know how to get better, or you don't know the things to prioritize getting better, right? So like whatever it might be, having context with through an agency that has that data, super, super valuable.
Question. So on that benchmarking front, that's an interesting, the intake numbers, answering the calls. I'm curious, is the difference if the median is at that 93, 94%, is there a big difference between those who are at the median versus those who are at, say, 97, 98, 99% that is as great in a positive sense as those are in the negative at 80%?
So you're asking the Pareto principle. It's really hard to go from 93 to 98%. What's the difference? What's the difference between those firms? So I will tell you this, the difference between those firms, I'm going to answer this a lot of ways, but it's all the same answer.
Great.
In many times, people will be like, oh, I answer the phone 100% of the time. Like, you do? Like, yeah, I have an answering service. And but then I know if you think you answer the phone 100% of the time because you have an answering service, you've never listened to inbound calls, and you don't look at the data. You're not looking at the data, because I know that doesn't happen. I know it doesn't happen. And so if you think what I find with this number in general, if you think you're really good at something, you're probably really bad at it. If you know you're not really good at it, if you see the data and you're like, I'm so mad about this, you're probably above average. But what happens is if you don't have the data, you think you're good because you think you're a great business owner. If you do have the data, you've been working at it and trying to make it better, which means you're probably above average, but you're still mad about it, right? So like your whole perspective on this becomes interesting. So sorry, to go back to your question, what it means is there is someone at the firm whose job is to make sure, this happens on all sorts of things, but phone calls are an obvious example, that we are answering the phone. And that person, and so usually that person, so the person that shouldn't be is someone who has no power, right? You get like the front desk to listen in on things. It's got to be someone who can make decisions and make moves, who can drop people, like who can really have the authority. And that's a really hard thing for law firms to have, because ceding that level of authority for many law firm owners is like, it's really difficult, but you got to get there. This role to me is often a COO. It's a fractional COO type person. It is a operations VP. That's the job. Someone who's making this firm run, and they need to be listening in on those calls and monitoring the data and actually changing it. What I find is the firms that do that will typically take as much of their calls in-house as possible, which goes against working with the third-party answering services. I I don't think the third party answering services aren't the wrong way to go, but there's a level of
Right.
scale at which, like, okay, you want to be staffed 24/7. You can't do that if you're only getting 3 phone calls a night, right? That just doesn't make sense. So great, use a Smith when you're in that situation. But the people who do a really good job are those firms that are monitoring it, like proactively monitoring it to make it better. And my perspective anecdotally here is the firms that make it better by making more in-house coverage. And like, I like the people at Smith. Like, there's lots of things to do with this, but like, I think that's a really big difference. And yeah.
So it sounds like you and I may share a certain type of crusade, which is a crusade against absolutism, especially when it comes to marketing, where everyone wants to say that there's only one way to do things. And it sounds like you're saying, turns out there are multiple ways to do things. And if you walk around as the hammer, perceiving every problem as a nail, it's going to cause more trouble than it's worth. So you have an agency that offers different solutions for different problems. At least that's the way that I perceive it on the outside looking in. What are some of the absolutist beliefs? And maybe I'm completely off base. Maybe you love absolutism and there's only one way to do everything. Well, what are some of the absolutist issues that you see in the profession right now?
Well, I think there's a like, I want to go back to when we were ranking number 1, right? Or I want to go back to, like, it used to work really well. Like, I used to have all these fake offices and it was amazing. Make them come back, right?
So 250 word blog articles every 2 days, right. External blog, all of it.
So those, like, this is the formula that worked. I want to go back. Like, sorry, dude, like, this is a tech game. The sand is moving under your feet. Look at the changes in Google search market share, right? That's come up recently as like really surprising, is a drop in Google search market share in search, right? Like, okay. The notion that people are looking for their lawyer on TikTok, to me as a 49-year-old, is absolutely bananas, but like, that's happening. So like, we're not going backwards. I think that's a mistake. There's also a mistake. Like, I tried this and it didn't work, right? I hear this all the time about pay-per-click. I ran pay-per-click myself and it sucked. So we're not going to try it. Well, you probably, because Google makes it really easy for you to spend money, you probably didn't do it. And by the way, running pay-per-click, Guy hit me on this yesterday, or maybe it was this morning. Like, oh, you pay-per-click agencies, you think that people should be running pay-per-click through agencies because it's so difficult. To be honest, at this point in time, it's really difficult to run pay-per-click. It is so sophisticated, and Google is trying to make it so easy for you to waste money on clicks that aren't going to turn into clients.
Wait, so AdWords Express isn't a gold mine for me?
AdWords, we got kicked out of the Google Premier Partnership Program because we stopped listening. We refused to listen to their recommendations, and their recommendations typically were to do both of two things: loosen up the way you're thinking about keywords, right? So expand that, which means basically spend more money on stuff that isn't going to convert. And so we got axed, and like, I'm happy to have been axed for that. But you're going back to the absolutism. So the one channel, this thing that worked, or like, there's the history thing, but I think what's missing in the mindset of people who are kind of singularly channel focused, or like, this is a really good channel, or that's a really good channel. And I'm seeing this, and I'll give you examples of how this works, but you're missing the synergies of multi-channel. So if you're running 5 channels, you will get the value of running 7. And I'll give this is not disputable. This is a math example to this. If you are a heavy offline advertiser, okay, you have a big brand. Let's say you've done a great job, not just with brand awareness, but brand affinity. People like you for whatever reason. You're a law firm. You cracked the code of getting people to like you. Great. That's all right. You want the magic bullet? Figure that part out, but we can come back to that. But let's say you've done that. That means that on pay-per-click terms, like a really expensive head term like motorcycle accident Louisville, your click-through rate is going to be higher on your ads. Okay? And because your click-through rate is higher on your ads, you're going to get a better quality score. And because you get a better quality score, the amount you have to bid to be at number 2 or 1 or 3 drops. That means your economics get better, right? And so I hate that this is an MBA word that when I was in business school, if people said synergy, like people do the dog collar shock thing, because like don't say synergy. But this is a synergy thing, and it's a very real thing. So multi-channel, being across platforms. I saw your billboard. Then you sponsored my kid's little league team, and then I did an SEO query, and you showed up. And then when I wanted to call you, I looked for your brand, and I found your GMB profile. Like, that's a very real thing. Yep. So, and unfortunately, if you're a small firm, it's hard to run multi-channel. Right? It's super hard because it's money. There's a scale at which you need to be in order to play in that game. So this becomes difficult, but I think the absolute notion misses the synergy of all of these marketing channels.
Huge fan of multi-channel marketing. I'm curious, as sort of a last question before we transition to the close here, which is, if you have someone who has a limited budget, is it well spent to try and focus on, say, conquering one channel and trying to break through on a channel and then expanding? Or is a level of experimentation across 2, 3, 4 channels the better option?
Very much the latter is a terrible idea, because you're not going, if you spend a small amount and sprinkle that small amount across a lot of things, like, you have no idea. And your exposure is going to be very, very limited. You can't do that. So I would say, put that money into a channel. But I think the other way to look at this is, don't put it into a channel, put it into a market. So I'm not going to try pay-per-click, but I'm going to try and appeal to the gay and lesbian community, or the people who really like the Seattle Sounders, or the people who are into saving the planet, or the Democrats, or like, I don't care what the hell it is, but like, put that money, don't try and boil your city's ocean. Find the affinity, right? Because once you get affinity, I talked about this earlier, once you find the affinity, now you've cracked, like, that's really hard. People like your law firm. They don't just know who you are, they like you. Well, you can do that by, like, I'm really into like search and rescue. That's what I do. I do ski patrol on the winters. Like, that's a part of who I am. If I had a small budget, that's my market in Seattle, right? Because it's who I am. It's what I like doing. And it's going to be really easy for me to boil that lake.
Even a pond.
Yeah, boil the pond. Thank you. Right. So like, boil the pond, I would focus on identifying a very small market and going after that market, as opposed to trying to be everything to everyone.
Love that. All right, Conrad, before I ask you the final little 3-parter, if people want to connect with you, learn more about Mockingbird marketing, etc., what's the best place for them to start?
I would start with, the best place to start is my last name, because it's unusual. So if you Google SAAM and Conrad, like, you'll find me. There's no one else. There's none others. So for better or worse, my digital footprint is easy to find.
There you go. All right. So go look up Conrad and track him down. Go track down Mockingbird Marketing. So last little question for you here. What are you reading, watching, and listening to these days?
What am I reading, watching? So the listening to is easy. I am obsessed with American politics. I listen to Pod Save America, and that betrays that I'm a bleeding heart liberal. The guys who run this, all work for Obama, and they are hysterical and insightful. And if you're into politics, especially if you're not into left-leaning politics, like, don't even bother. But like, I do make my kids listen to Pod Save America. So that's what I'm listening to. Watching, this is going to be a disappointment. I don't watch TV. I just don't. We have a TV. It's above our garage. We just don't. So I try and keep my yeah. I just don't. So my knowledge of what's going on, like, in today's cultural world is absolutely zero. And on the reading thing, I've recently read Buy Back Your Time, which is a really good business book. If you are a leader of a firm, and I'm really fascinated with these lawyers who are becoming CEOs, this transition from lawyer to CEO. Buy Back Your Time is a really good tactical kick in the butt to work on that. That has been really good. The other one that's really good that I've read recently is called Unreasonable Expectations. It is about a super, super high-end restaurant in New York and how they became a super, super high-end restaurant by over-delivering. And
Oh,
as an
Unreasonable
agency,
Hospitality.
Unreasonable Hospitality. Sorry,
It's a
Unreasonable
great book.
Hospitality. It's
Yes.
fantastic. It's outside of the legal market, so like, thank God I'm not thinking about lawyers all the time. But it's a unreasonable. You're right. Unreasonable Hospitality. I was blank going through my head. Like, I think. Yeah, no, it's Unreasonable Hospitality. It's a big yellow book, and the meta point on this is it talks about the importance of over delivering on the awesome and unnecessarily, like it's unexpected, right? Like, and that's what this restaurant did to make themselves amazing. And when you read it with a pen, scribble all over the book with ideas about for your firm, and then try and implement like 3 of them. We've really changed a lot of. We're trying to do things in a like. I want people delighted when they work with us, right? Mm-hmm. And like with an agency, like it's like, oh, here's your end of month report, and everything looks like up and to the right, and I hope you're happy, right? And like that's not delight, right? That's how do we make people delightful to work with us? What does that look like? And I think about that a lot.
It's those 2 books, Buy Back Your Time and Unreasonable Hospitality, have been 2 of the most valuable books I've read this year. So I love the fact that those are the 2 that you're listing.
Yeah, they are. They're so good. They're so good. And then if you're a business owner, you know that this whole game is much messier than people think it is. I like to say that being a business owner is better than anyone thinks it is, and it's worse than anyone thinks it is.
Yes,
so if you're into running or business, read the autobiography of Phil Knight. It's called Shoe Dog.
Shoe Dog.
He talks about like that company nearly went out of business so many times, and like, no, you would never. I don't think that, right? And so he goes through all of the shenanigans that he used to have to pull to make Nike what it is today, and it's really a great grounding. And because I think a lot of times, like you see like all these people like, oh, Daryl Isaacs has it all filled out or figured out, or Michael Moore's had this like master plan that he just executed on. Bullshit. Like it was messy. I know it was messy because it's messy in my world, right? And so it's just nice for Phil Knight to not be presenting Nike as this like master plan that he executed upon gracefully, but like it's chaos. It's chaos, and that's what it is, running a business.
Yeah. Managed chaos at times and total chaos at others.
Yeah. And I don't think people appreciate that until they're sitting in the CEO founder role. You just don't.
Yeah, for sure. It's something I've grown to appreciate a lot.
I'm sure you have.
Conrad, I appreciate your time, your wisdom, your insight, your knowledge, and some light ribbing here or there, which I hope to do again in the near future.
Yeah, of course.
Thank you so much for being on the show, and we will
Pleasure.
see you all in the next episode of They Don't Teach This in Law School.